welcome yet again to another episode of our Uganda Diaspora Show. And those of you who've just joined our channel for the first time, you are welcome. My name is Lynn Komugisah, and we get to speak issues Uganda and diaspora. We get to digest issues that are, of importance to us all and help, find a suitable understanding for all of us. So I welcome you. Go to our channels on YouTube, Civic Space TV, on Twitter, okay, on X. Yes, on Facebook as well, Instagram. We're also on TikTok. So look us up at Civic Space TV and you will find all the latest conversations and analysis on issues affecting us as human beings, but also importantly as Ugandans. Today I have with me Miriam Kyomugasho. I have Francis Kamuhanda. I have Albert Baksara. All these are based in the US. I also have Dr. Kisambira, who is in Uganda. Of course, I'm also in Uganda. And we're going to have a conversation, a number of issues. But allow me bring you up to speed on a couple of things. We start off on a bad note. This morning, we lost a prominent businessman here in Uganda to a grisly accident. Businessman Rajiv Pareria died in an accident this morning on Busabala Road. And that reminds me of when Albert was in the country, you saw how our roads were. So fingers are being pointed at the roadworks ongoing. Away from that, it was Labor Day the other day. President Museveni acknowledged workers' demands. He did not specify or give a strategy on when and how they will address some of the issues, especially the stagnant minimum wage, but he did hint on significant reforms in the labor sector. We also lost Major John Kazora, who died on Easter Sunday. I'm sure those you know this person. The other day, if not yesterday, the security agencies blocked a planned solidarity gathering with other opposition parties and party leaders at the National Unity Platform headquarters. And interestingly, as we plan to get into 2026, political temperatures are rising. In the FDC camp, we're seeing that 6 people have been fronted or are contesting or planning to contest for the party presidency, and that's a very interesting development there. And and finally, of course, not the list of it, but there's so much happening. But Justice Lydia Mugambe was sentenced to 6 years in prison, apparently for mistreating a house help back in the UK. I know a lot has been going on. I want to begin with Albert. Albert, could you briefly tell us what's the latest back in Washington?
Thank you, Lynn, and I apologize for driving. So start with Miriam, so I can find a nice person.
All right, no problem. Miriam, take it away.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, viewers and the panelists. USA is still hot, the politics, and we were reviewing the 100 days of the new government. And a lot has been really, it feels like so many years so far, but so far, especially for the migrant community. So it's discomfort, but with a lot of hope, we hope things will get better and better, but still it's the same thing. And the weather is getting much better, which is good news. And sorry about the people who have lost lives in Kampala. The roads in Kampala, you can never talk so much about the road network, whether it's in the city. If it's not those potholes, it's the borders, it's everything. And the traffic kills more people I mean, the road accidents kill more people in Kampala than even the other killers. There was, I remember during COVID, they were saying like accidents are even killing more people than COVID. Do you wonder which one should be an emergency over the other?
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, thank you, Miriam. Francis, anything you could share with us that's happening? Francis, unmute.
Oh, thank you, Lynn, uh, fellow panelists and our viewers. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, it all started with the 100 days of the current regime, and you know, like it has been most prominent the trade war with the different countries, and then we have seen tariffs being imposed on we saw tariffs being imposed on different countries. We have seen like immigration issues and stuff like that. But all these continue to create anxiety and uncertainty within USA, but also most important amidst the wars that are going on, most especially Ukraine and Russia, and then Gaza Strip. But all these we see them as the US playing a key role either in bringing peace or in escalating those wars. And then, of course, we have seen US's intervention in as far as the Houthi rebels is concerned. So, but all in all, we think that maybe as it's being promised that there will be peace negotiations, and we see sanity returning. Otherwise, it is all that is more of a melting pot that causes uncertainty in as far as global instability is concerned. Thank you.
Sorry. Dr. Zubair, could you share with us what, briefly, if there's anything that's making headlines you'd like to share with us today?
Well, thank you so much, Lynn, and greetings to everyone on this show. Well, a few things here and there, but I think I have three most touching stories on my side. According to the things I'm trying to look up to and things that I really give my attention. One was the recent abduction of the most immediate bodyguard of the current president of the leading opposition in Uganda, of the National Unity Platform, and which is not so much deviant from what has been happening, but the accompanying tweets from the CDF have actually made it capture much attention from both local and international media arenas. And yeah, it has sparked off some direction of discussion, which is seemingly provocative to the population in trying to think of how they're going to live with each other, given the multiplicity of ethnicities that we have. Secondly is the raid. I am still perplexed about what made the army raid a police station in Lubowa and cane or beat up police officers and the army office, and the general public. So I am still perplexed on the discipline of these two prominent institutions and how they work with each other, to the extent that, yes, they maybe have to reach that extent of actually beating up each other without explanation. And what has been most disturbing to my head, I saw a tweet from the spokesperson, the current acting spokesperson of the UPDF, calling the police elements. He said it was simply miscommunication between the two sister security agencies from the UPDF and the elements in police. So that statement caught my attention. And then last but not least was the confirmation of the withdrawal of aid by the USAID from Uganda regional referral hospitals, where several projects were taking place in support of several healthy activities in the areas of TB, HIV, and the rest. So this was completely seized, and hospitals have less than 3 months to close off the project and give reports. So the question becomes, how prepared are we as a country, as a Ministry of Health, to steward this forward to make sure the services are not hampered? Basically, that's what made the top-notch stories on my side, as far as I'm following what is happening in the country. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Kisambira. You actually highlight one of the key stories we're going to delve into shortly. Albert, are you set to...
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and good morning again to everyone. Thank you, Lynn, for this show again. And it's been a while, but I'm glad to be back. So on this side, I think Francis and Miriam already talked about the 100 days. So I'm not sure how the people, and maybe the doctor can elaborate. I know he just talked about the freezing of the funding, but maybe he can elaborate more about how the people outside see what is happening in the US. So two things I could say, and one of them is something that we've been talking about for a long time. I remember during the campaign talking on this very show, telling people that the president of the US, whether Democrat or Republican, they're going to be working for the interests of the US. Therefore, it's incumbent upon our leaders in Africa to actually start working for their people instead, because there was a lot of excitement in Uganda. Oh, we don't want Biden because of this sanction about this, because of this anti-homosexuality act and this, whatever it was. But for us who have lived here for a while and understand the politics of this place, it was never going to be that somebody was going to be elected here as the president of the US and somehow they have policies that were favorable to Uganda or any other country in Africa for that matter. Okay? That's one. Secondly, we've always talked about immigrant population here in the US, the diaspora, as we call ourselves. And I had, for the longest time, begged the policymakers in Kampala to look at this community, encourage it, its unity, its cohesion, its investments, but they did not listen, and they have not listened to this day. Now the time has come. I even remember talking about the remittances, a lot of money that we send from here to Uganda, and they remember saying that money is not always going to be there, because at one point, and for anybody who was watching, this was coming. At some point, this was coming. Okay, there was going to be a time when the pendulum would swing to the extreme right, and immigration will be cut off. You will not have another wave of African immigrants or any other kind of immigrants flocking in this place. At some point, that door was going to be closed. Now, all of us did not anticipate what has happened so quickly with the president and the policies he's put in place very quickly. And we're shell-shocked. So I wanted to know from Uganda, how are you guys seeing this? And what do you do now? And what are you saying? What are the contingencies the government is putting in place to work or deal with some of the shock waves that are coming from Washington? So I'll stop there, Lynn, and we can add on later.
All right. Thank you very much, Albert. Indeed, most of the works have halted. People have been laid off because there's no money to pay them, and there's so much happening around what the Trump policies, the effects of Trump policies have on back home. And indeed, we did have that conversation at some point, maybe last year or the other year, when we hinted on how prepared we are to manage our own problems, and we are relying heavily on donors, and here we are now, we're biting our fingers. I think it's a conversation we should have, and see how best we're prepared. Albert, we will delve into that conversation maybe at a later time. But for today, I want us to take a look at very interesting developments. And one key is that the Chief of Defense Forces has publicly confirmed that Eddie Mutwe, the personal bodyguard of NUP President Bobby Wine, was abducted by the army and is under custody. Now, on his X account, he says that he is being detained by the UPDF, though he did not specify under what charges or legal framework the detention was made. Now, as we prepare ourselves for the 2026 general elections, we know what this means. We know what this, especially the tweeting general. And I want to begin with you, Miriam. We have had conversations about the tweeting general before, but it is getting out of hand, and people, the recent tweets about him alleging that Eddie Mutwe is learning Runyankore in his basement is talking tribal sentiments and divisions and flaring up all sorts of fear as we head into the general elections. What do you make of these, and for how long are we going to lament and make noise about the tweeting general?
Among the tweets, start with the tweeting general. I mean, it's so appalling, but he also tweeted that most people think his tweets are jokes, but they are not. And that was like a catchphrase for me. That was maybe like, a reality check. Like, this is so real. We have a maniac in our hands, and he's in charge. He's in charge of a brutal force which is supposed to be protecting Ugandans, but he is using them, the forces to oppress Ugandans. And he's like, right now he's acting like he's above the law, but legally he is not above the law. Constitutionally, he should be a serving public officer, and he should be liable and being held accountable by all the legal standards that every other officer is treated on or being held on accountable. But so far he is acting like he's above the law and nobody touches him. Yeah, he's the president's son, and it's so up to the other level. Like, if you really say something about him, like I was tweeting and someone said, hey, they will come for you. Like, he is now like like someone, like, I don't want to compare him to Idi Amin, but I wasn't there when Idi Amin was torturing Ugandans. But from what I read is like Idi Amin, whenever you would say something, you can't say it beyond a whisper. I don't know whether we are degenerating to that level. I don't know if we're gonna stop somewhere and maybe say, okay, this is not what Uganda should be, and it's time we really check ourselves. I don't know whether there is anybody supervising him. The president seems to be sleeping somewhere. You don't see him, you don't hear him. It's just like a suspense, but a dark suspense. It's like you are in a dark tunnel and you don't see any silver lining so far. He's oppressing opposition, but his act and his conduct, especially at this moment, reminded me that every other time, every year, that year, a few months towards election, the NRM government does something so drastic to the opposition. Either they want to scare them away, or it's like a warning shot, like, hey, we are here and we're gonna destroy you if you tamper with our power. I don't want to call it NRM government as such, but Museveni and his military officers. Normally it's the security agencies. It's either the police or the army and the president, who is the commander in chief. Because the NRM politicians are also helpless as such, but they're also collectively liable because they support that terrorizing weapon, the terrorizing machine of the regime, which is the one which keeps them in power. So they are responsible because they are part of it. But every other time, if we remember in 2020, as we were heading to 2021 elections, they brought in soldiers on Kampala streets who massacred people in broad daylight and killed more than 60, but nobody was held accountable, even up to now. They made statements here and there, but they couldn't do much, and they never showed anything. And apart from taking sacks of portion that bereaved families, I don't think they went anywhere beyond that. And the human rights agencies were still active and calling out for justice and accountability, but nothing happened. So now we are going to the next elections, and they have started again. They started with Kawempe by-election, and you saw what mayhem happened, how they tortured the journalists. Unfortunately, when the media was celebrating their World Press Freedom Day and having those conversations, that's when Mohozi, the CDF, came up and tweeted about his basement dungeon where he's torturing another citizen who has done nothing apart from challenging his father's holding to power, his politics, which is constitutionally a right of every Ugandan, and the freedom of everybody to express their political opinions. So that when he confessed, okay, as we speak now, the person is still there under torture, and we don't know how he's being tortured or what he's going through. But if we can look back, we know the type of torture that they go through. We've seen how Kakweza was tortured. We've seen people coming out of their detentions. They call them detentions, but I don't know what they are. Because legally you cannot detain anybody in an gazetted place without following the due process. So whatever they are doing is more like an abduction or a kidnap. It's not a detention. We can't call it a detention or an arrest or anything. So we've seen people coming from there. Some die because some people disappear forever and they are never accounted for. So you wonder how worse is it gonna be? Is he gonna stop? Who is going to stop him? Because his father, who is his supervisor, ideally, he's not saying anything about it, which also means that the father, who is the president, condones whatever he's doing. Because even before Mohos became a CDF, before he came on the scene, on the political scene, all these actions of torturing opposition have been going on, unabated and sanctioned by the president. We saw how they would bring up Kareke Hora and face police, and they were torturing people everywhere. There was Kakoza Mutare before that, before Kareke Hora, there was Kakoza Mutare, and he used to call it Woko Squad, but they were just a gang of hooligans on his pickup, beating up everybody who doesn't vote NRM. So these things have not started yesterday, and like the president is saying nothing. So, which means that's part of his agenda. That's part of his politics. If you don't support him, they beat you, they torture you, they do everything to ensure that you don't challenge them and their power. And that's so sad. And coming back to USA and cutting off aid and such, it is so unfortunate that all these things are happening at that time when US, which was a biggest like an observer, like some foreign nation that was really concerned about the governance of Africa and Uganda in particular. So they've cut off the watchdogs, the USAID, and other agencies which were which were observing and maybe adding a voice on the human rights corner and the governance. They've cut them off. They have not only cut them off and closed the agencies, but they went far. The US has so far edited the way they define human rights. If you go there, there was a report that now they will be no longer bothered about governance, oppressing the opponents by the government. They won't be bothered about governance issues, the rights and the freedoms concerned. So that means even the people who were like sanctioned because of the abuses, like Kareki Wara was sanctioned because of his excessive abuse of human rights, Now we are no longer going to see that big voice being added on, like a big brother voice coming, calling us to stop and all that. And I think that's also what has added bravado in Muhoozi's actions, because before that he wouldn't come out openly to confess that he's torturing someone. But now they know nobody's watching and nobody's going to call him to order. But then that calls upon Ugandans. What should we do? This is also, it must be unfortunate. It looks dark, but it's an opportunity for me as a Pan African. I look at it as an opportunity for us now to correct our energies, to rally against all these oppressors. Excuse me. For instance, when an NRA went to the bush to fight Idi Amin, they never consulted any foreign body. Maybe they had support of Tanzania, but when they were fighting Idi Amin, but it was an indigenous energy. It was the force from within the people. And we need to go back in among ourselves and rally ourselves and fight our oppressors. We can't sit to watch people, a few leaders, a few individuals, oppressors hold on to power, illegally arresting people arbitrarily and killing others, and we do nothing about it, just waiting for foreigners to help us. And this should even go beyond East Africa. I was seeing like in Kenya, it's even worse. They are arresting journalists, they are torturing people, they are kidnapping. Tanzania, same thing. The leader of opposition is being tortured. In Sudan, same story. I think this is also another opportunity for East Africa. The people, not even that, not the dictators are organized at another level, but this is time for the people. The people should unite together, whether they are academicians, the legal bodies, the judiciary, the religious leaders, the workers. It's time to rally at that grassroots level and fight for our freedom. In the past, we were fighting against colonialists, but this time we are fighting against dictators. And I think we can do it because at the end of the day, power belongs to the people.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you indeed, Miriam. Francis Kamuhanda, I come to you and we have, we have had this conversation, but now a new interesting development is that the boss at Human Rights Commission Uganda, Ms. Miriam Wangadia, has ordered the CDF to release the NIPS president's chief bodyguard, and that is Eddie Mutwe. This is interesting because we know that the Human Rights Commission always comes out and says things and it ends there and nothing ever happens, So with this and the growing concerns about the targeting of opposition figures and supporters as political mobilization activities intensify, leaves us still or takes us back to where we always are pre-election year. You get so the question here is that are we going to see any changes anytime soon, or this is our way of life, and so we should embrace it and sit and wait for 2026 and go through the same troubles?
Oh, thank you, Lynn, and the fellow panelists and our viewers. I would say we are not going to see changes. And it is important, Museveni always begins with the history. I would also begin with our history, and I have always constantly quoted the preamble of our constitution. I'll pick the first two sentences, which have the first sentence talks about constitutional instability. That's where everything begins. Like, for example, right now, do we have a constitutional instability or a constitutional crisis in Uganda? The answer is yes. To justify that, we have had our constitution abrogated by changing the term limits, changing the age limits, and then of recent you have been seeing gerrymandering. Like if Kaindotafire loses an election, then they carve two parishes for him into a constituency for him to come. And when they get to parliament, then whatever they are passing and discussing, like all about numbers, and then they can't even condemn what is evil. That becomes part of it. In some time back, we were on with Simon on this panel, and I said that the NRM and Museveni and his government, they have degenerated into a terrorist organization. And I still remember we had even win on the show, and Simon was contesting. But sentence number 2 in the preamble of our constitution, it says recalling our history, which was preoccupied by tyranny, oppression, and exploitation. So all these have again happened. Even I could say, although Miriam was saying during the ministry we are not there, but we can even say to a magnitude, possibly even more than what maybe Museveni has always accused of Obote and Amin of doing. So now, to me, that confirms that once the constitution has been overrun by Museveni and specifically his family. When I'm talking about his family, his son-in-law, his brother, and so on. Like, it is more of Uganda is more of a company limited by shares to the Museveni's family and close relatives. And therefore, this brings us, you are saying, will this, are we seeing it in the upcoming elections? It has already started. Number one, we no longer have the Uganda People's Army. No, it has been reduced to a security agency for a family. That's why you see they deploy them at will. If a neighbor, like if you are friendly to them, you just say, hey, there are some people who are attacking me here. They will send for you the SFC to come and help you. We have seen that it has happened up there in South Sudan. The terms we don't know as Ugandans. If it is Uganda People's Defense Forces, we should be in the know. So it is the same that is being used. He will ask them, go and abduct so and so for me. Within seconds, they will bring you, and you have seen his bragging. And therefore, this is preparing that in 2026, we'll see this coming more and more and more and more. So the whole of chapter 4 of our constitution that talks about our rights and so on, that one has been captured, and we will see ourselves, for us who are in opposition, we will see more of our members, we will see more of the democratic dispensation just triumphed on. I don't think that even we should talk about democratic dispensation in Uganda. It no longer exists. And I see all this happening. Now, when we talk about commissions like the Human Rights Commission, writing to Muhoozi and whoever it may concern that they should release Eddie Mutwe or produce Eddie Mutwe into the courts of law if he has a case to answer. I'm not saying that maybe Eddie Mutwe doesn't have a case to answer. I absolutely agree, even me, I can be arrested. But what I ask is, take me to court. Let the court decide. Bring the evidence that you have against me. That's how democracy, that's how human rights works. But for them, because they don't do that, they create torture chambers. That means they have overrun the constitution. Technically, we don't have a government. Like, as we have always said, we have moved from dictatorship. It is terrorism, inculcating as much fear as they can to change the ideological beliefs of people. And once they do that, then we are in terrorism. And I still believe that when it comes to the upcoming election, 2026, it will be worse. And but do I say that as we who are in the opposition, we should fear? The answer is no. Like as how Miriam has said, people will reach at a time, like as we are being pressed to the extreme, it will reach at a time when they press the red button that will spark off a revolution that they themselves will not be able to stop. But what worries me most, though, is that when you look at the actions of the president, because he's supporting his son, is in compliance with what the son is doing, is now to begin pooling their own issues to to tribal issues. Like to say, like for example, when you say is in my basement learning Runyankore and so on, is it learning it as a national language? And then number two, what are you trying to insinuate in as far as the majority of the community is concerned? Are you telling them that either all the Banyankole agree with you? Is it a project for all Banyankole that people should learn Runyankore? So that's where it is going. And Lynn, there are people who have been like telling people, don't talk about it. You are encouraging tribalism. But no, the more we talk about it openly, the more we'll get solutions for it. But otherwise, if people keep quiet, anger will be growing, and when it explodes, even nobody can stop it. So I would sincerely argue that Mohozi and whoever those who are supporting them, they have gone beyond what we should be able to accommodate, and therefore there is need for a decisive action in whatever form it comes to contain them. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis, for that. The Uganda Law Society has condemned the abduction of Sebufu Edimutwe, as he's commonly known. Dr. Kisambira, I come to you, and in that regard, the Forum for Democratic Change President Patrick Aboy Amuriat has also urged and said, and I quote from his ex post, says, "Lamentations got overboard. NUP is the official position. You must lead in restoring public trust in Uganda. Crying out here and nothing happens. Act differently." He's calling on the opposition to do something. The leading party of the opposition, which is the National Unity Platform, instead of making noise, to do actually something that something tangible. Another thing is, relatedly, is that we have a significant and one of the important opposition figures in government as the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs in the names of Norbert Mao. We are seeing all these things happen to the opposition and all these problems happening to the opposition. But as an opposition figure in government, I am wondering, does he have a role to play, or did he fold his hands when he joined government and forgot that he is not just a DP president, but also a figure on the table with the government and should be able to, speak up when such issues come up?
Well, thank you so much, moderator and panelists, for your brilliant contributions to today's discussion. Thank you, Madam Lynn, for this question. Yes, it is absurd that two people who look like each other are actually trying to point fingers on each other, and that means that they may not learn anything from one another. When Patrick Amuriat Aboy points a finger to the leading opposition in trying to question them, what have they done, or what can they do to change the status quo beyond sentiments and speeches? I want to respond to this, that yes, he's very right in his opinion that there is something more that can be done. But one unfortunate thing is that he has not been able to give an option. I believe if he presented to the leading opposition some of the options that are beyond what they can do right now, I'm quite sure that there are those who are pretty much determined to take up some of those options. One of the things that I keep saying is that the people who are in power have forgotten that the biggest percentage of our population is actually that of the young people. One of the days when I traveled up country in Busoga, one of the regions that is growing sugarcane, mostly, like they have substituted subsistence farming to sugarcane growing. In other words, they've been left with no land for food and all that. Many of the young people have left school, and they have opted to work in the sugarcane plantations. So these are people who can cause chaos anytime, and they have nothing to lose. So they are just waiting for someone to spark them to do actually do something, and they will do it, and they have nothing to lose. Now the problem is here that is it the right way in the current geopolitical times? Are we advocating for violence? Is this what the Honorable Patrick Amyatobo is trying to say? Is he calling for violent means beyond what they are doing? Is he calling them to attack the person who is perpetrating the arrests? Is he trying to call for physical attacks to the head of state who is under the watch of all this? Is he trying to attack maybe the different civil society organizations that are in existence, trying to watch all this happen? I want to say this, that the efforts of the speeches should not be underestimated. I believe most of the people right now who have understood their rights and are trying to do something about it, the efforts have been yielded through the continuous civic engagements using different platforms. So the talks should not be underestimated. It's a serious tool, and it's actually one of the magnificent tools that one can use in the current times, is to speak about something, raise awareness, and then action can be taken. Don't you think, or I don't think personally, that the reaction from Miss Miriam Wangadian is just out of her own making, but it could be either in fear of criticism, like a preventive measure, or it could be a reactionary measure as a result of pressure from certain organizations. What's the human rights doing about this? Have you just left it go just, unabated? Like it should just go just like that. So she has chosen to react that way because of the talks, because of the posts, because of the sentiments that these people are putting up. So the Honorable Patrick Amyatobo should not downplay these efforts. They are very serious. But if he believes that there are some other options that the opposition can take to actually fight for what belongs to them, then he is fit to present to them some of these options. About the Honorable Mao and his alliance to the NRM, it's one of the most, I think, laughable blunders that the opposition has made in open daylight. Because yes, we've been hearing stories of the opposition people going into the State House in the night and reaping for their own benefits and forgetting about the other people that they represent. And in the day, they behave otherwise. But this happened in broad daylight. It was like a marriage between, I'm sorry to say, but a marriage between two people of different faiths and sects, and, but it is being done in an open. Yes, we opted out of church and out of mosque, but we organized an area and tried to make it official. But at the back of our minds, we all know it's not going to work. Have you had the Honorable Mao being, okay, if we try to dissect his capacity right now, he's the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. He's one of the presidents of the biggest and historical opposition parties in the country. What has he done or said about the breakage of the rule of law that is going on? Someone is taking the law into their hands. They are openly speaking about, even when it is not what they are actually doing. And as most people are saying, it's just a joke. What has the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs come out to say about this? He should have at least the minimum thing that we would expect from him. He would have issued a ministerial statement about this. Like, as the ministry, this is what we shall maybe accept. These are the standards. And so we guide A, B, C, D, E. But for days and days, these posts have been running, and the guy has not said anything. What does this show? That the fruits of his marriage in courts with the ruling party probably would have been a right strategy if he was dealing with the right people. So he dealt with the wrong person, and for those of us who are expecting results, we are actually not seeing any results, or we shall not see any results, because Mao could have been the right person for that marriage, but he got a wrong partner. The president, the incumbent, His Excellency General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, has had several coalitions both at an individual level and at institutional levels, but the results of these have not been seen. We remember the coalition between him and Seya, the former mayor of Kampala, when he was contesting for presidency. That coalition had a goal and an objective, but was it ripped? And then back after some time, we saw Seya falling back to the opposition. So all this is that, yes, the public has something to demand from President Mao as a president of a political party, an opposition party, but also as a minister of justice. But some of us, the cautious public, we know that, yes, he's not going to do anything. Lastly, the question of, yes, if the president of the Uganda Law Society is able to write something about the conspicuous breakage of the rule of law as a principle in good governance, if such a smaller institution that is probably subordinate to the Ministry of Justice has been able to put out such, what has the ministry done? We need to see something, and we need to see things being worked out. Lastly, my last input on this matter is I actually do not want to dwell much on what the opposition has done, probably what the institutions have done. Personally, I don't expect to see something new about this. But my question is, which direction are we taking as a country if the tribal sentiments in what the CDF is trying to, how he's reacting to the arrest of Eddie Sebofu, alias Eddie Mutwe. His reaction has been sent in a tribalistic direction that we've tried to desist from as a country for so many years, and we have not yet achieved. So he has divided the country in just 24 hours. If you visit all the media platforms, the most trending thing before the death of Mr. Sudir's son, may his soul rest in peace, the most trending thing were the tribal sentiments between those who think are against the Banyankole and those who think are between they are Banyankole but they are not with the oppressor, and then those who think are actually benefiting from the oppressor, whether they or they are not Banyankoles. So we have three divides at the moment. Before we came for this show, I saw one of the videos where two TikTokers, I think they are looking for following, but whatever the case might be, but they have acted out a play of what might happen tomorrow. If you're first seeing something that could happen tomorrow, Mnyankole came, gave a lift to someone else who wasn't Mnyankole, probably Uganda, because the other guy was speaking Luganda and this guy is speaking Mnyankole. So after they reached the destination, yes, they shared, gratitude to each other. Thank you for giving me a lift and all that. Then the Muganda was like, Oloza biwedde. Nange webale yange, the guy pulled out a panga and is like, take our nebyange. Mwe muline ebintu, like you have everything, so give me my share. It's like, I've just given you a lift. So the guy was demanding for his share. This is something that is acted out, but trust me, it is something that is building. And most of the either revolutions or society changes that have happened, yes, society changes have different models and theories. One of them could be the conflict theory, but you could have change come through those plays, and as role plays, as comic plays or things. People are trying to send messages of what is happening in the background. So this should not be downplayed. Responsible citizens like me and you out there in the diaspora, we should think and do something to plan for what might come tomorrow, because as a country, we are not ready for a tribal war or a genocide like that has happened in our neighboring countries. But the sad note is that it is being fueled by the people who are in power, and they have created a serious divide between those who think are the majority and those who think are the minority. And as a country, we are not ready for this, and we need to think further on how we're going to handle that. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Kisambira, for that. And I really hope that and pray that whatever has been acted out or perceived is not does not come to reality, because we need peace, we need our lives intact, and we hope for a better tomorrow. I want to us to switch a bit away from still politics related and of course related to our country, but as we head towards the 2026 general elections, of course we're already seeing that there's worry about violence like that of 2021. let's take a look at what's happening within these political parties that we have. We have seen that the NRM, of course, has already started and is preparing itself as usual. It's always prepared and is trying to look like everything is okay for it. The FDC, interestingly, apart from it unveiling its electoral roadmap, 6 members of the FDC have vied for are set to vie for the presidency of the party, and that's a very interesting development there. We have the National Unity Platform, which has issued a 30-day ultimatum to Honorable Mpuga and other rebel members of parliament to resolve internal disputes or face expulsion ahead of the general elections. And they're also insisting that they will field candidates against these rebel members of parliament. That is the leading party. We are seeing that the DP, interestingly, sat and is saying that it is beginning a process of terminating its cooperation agreement with the National Resistance Movement, flinging the bromance Robert Mao and President Museveni have been enjoying on the rocks. And also, we saw that a couple of members of parliament and the DP quit the DP and have joined the National Unity Platform. Miriam, I want to begin with you, and I ask if, oh, Miriam just disappeared on us. Okay, fine. Francis Kamuhanda, with all these developments in these different political parties, and of course what we have looked at as tribal sentiments, as looming violence and human rights violations ahead of the, first of all, I'm seeing drama in these political parties. What are your expectations, and do you think the opposition stands a chance?
Oh, thank you, Lynn, for and fellow panelists for all the insights that you are bringing into this conversation, and for the question that you are looking at we in the opposition and the division and whatever is taking place. I will not speak for other political organizations, but I will give my own opinion. Yes, for most of the time we in opposition, we have always been blamed that our disunity is partly to blame for Museveni clinging on power. But what I would say that internal conflicts are normal in any setting, but the difference always lies in how we resolve them. And then two, in an organization, when an organization is growing or developing, such a differences are bound to occur. And therefore, I would say that what is taking place in either NOP, in ANT, in FDC is not new. But I think it's because the way how we are trying to resolve those differences is what is causing an alarm. And for sure, for a fact, I know the Museveni and the NRM, whenever they see these fissures that develop in our own political parties, they exploit them and then they make us weaker and weaker. But the most important thing, though, is that you see them, they are moving from one opposition party to the other, but it comes at a time where we would need to consolidate our effort, and it is so unfortunate. But then I would call my fellow opposition politicians that it is important that we identify who our enemy is. But if we identify each other as enemies, then we are bound to fail, because the force that we are confronting is beyond. Because, like you see, the NRM and the government are fused together. So, in terms of resources, they control and command the resources. Now we have seen how they command the powder and so on. So I would say that as we head to 2026, where it is not like a scientific campaign and drawing lessons from what we faced, during the 2021. It is important that these differences are sorted out very fast. I would urge our leaders sort out these differences very fast, and we consolidate our position so that we see how we can neutralize the NRM. But if you ask me, is time enough? Time is short, so that's why I'm arguing that we need to do away with these differences. Otherwise, would be overrun by the NRM. Then, when DP is thinking of terminating the marriage they have with the NRM, I think that in the first place it was a miscalculation that was not well calculated, and it ended up weakening all of us as the opposition. But I think if they realize and they are all in unison, because again, what normally causes the challenge is, yes, I understand that all of us cannot reason the same, but when we don't agree on a given strategy, most especially like elections, we have to have the same strategy or roadmap. That's when we can see how much our effort can be and how we can always consolidate it. But otherwise, I'm also like a little bit uncertain on how our leaders are steering forward to ensure that we meet NRM when we are already a consolidated front. But otherwise, as how things are going and counter accusations, it's not healthy. It would be good to do it out of the camera than on camera, and then the NRM, of course, has a huge leverage over us. And then it sees all these figures and they move in very fast, either through bribery and corruption tendencies, like as how you saw the bonanza of 100 millions, and then they overrun us. Because weaknesses are human. Like, people will always look for money. And so it is unfortunate, but we are going to try and see how we align ourselves before 2026. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Francis. Dr. Kisambira, if you're there and you can hear me, we're looking at the preparedness of these opposition parties ahead of the general elections. And as Francis has highlighted, we are seeing fissures, really, divisions all over the place in all the political opposition parties that we have. And it is worrying because it's a trend, just like we saw the violence against opposition political heads or political figures. The same with the divisions within the political opposition parties. This is the question I keep asking myself, and I keep wondering honestly how prepared opposition political parties are to beat the current government. Because with all the divisions, look at the FDC, we have two factions. Look at the National Unity Platform, we are seeing rebel MPs, we are seeing divisions therein, and none of them is looking to consolidate all that and maybe come together. We are seeing that the DP itself has dissenting voices. We are seeing, I don't know where Ant is, Francis, I think you will appraise us on how far and the strength Ant has currently. So I ask myself, honestly speaking, as the opposition political parties in the country, don't they feel embarrassed that they are opposition parties and yet they are divided against a party that is getting stronger by the day?
Well, thank you so much, the moderator. I want to start with your last statement. Don't they feel embarrassed? What can they do? Do they have an option, really? One thing that I have to tell you is that it is bad. Okay, not bad, but it's not a viable project. If someone went to hunt and at the same time they are hungry for themselves, meaning that they can easily be distracted by anything small that they meet on the way. Like I always put it, you're on your way to go to hunt, and your aim is to come back with a buffalo that is, able to serve the whole village, or let's say an elephant that is able to serve meat to the whole village and maybe chew a famine. But as the guy who is leading the battlefront to go and hunt, you're hungry, you're suffering from hunger. You understand? So if they happen to meet a mice or probably even just a fruit, they could have that and first seek maybe to rest in the forest, not minding on what is happening at the background. I mean, the motivation that made them actually come to stand in for the rest to go for hunting. This is exactly what is happening in the opposition. That the people, first of all, who are at the forefront to go and hunt for the rest, who might not have a chance to step onto the same platform, are hungry for themselves. So they first think about how to satisfy their small stomachs before they think of what is remaining for us to share. And this is the leading cause of division and, fragmentation in the opposition parties. Take a look. When you look at what is happening in the National Unity Platform, to start with, when someone bagged 500 million for whatever reason and whatever cause, which was not meant for general use or general purpose, but for individual use, they were not willing to subordinate their individual interests to the interests of the many, however right or wrong it was. That if you're someone who is substantive, I'm not dissecting him as a person, but I'm saying if you're someone who is substantive, and let's say you're a father in the home, yes, the African norms dictate that you're supposed to eat, maybe to take the head of the fish. And yes, this time round, we have a visitor who has come. And if we do not surrender the head of the fish to the visitor, we are going to taint the image of our home. And you are a father who is so filled with ego that no, here you're overstepping my mandate and you're violating my rights as a dad. The visitor will only eat soup and I'll eat the head. So in other words, you can easily subordinate your home's image, and stand in for your own personal interest, which does not represent the interest of all of us. This is the same thing that is happening, that the Honorable Mpuga, even when he was right to receive a service award, he could have subordinated that to stand with the interests of the many. And this could have prevented the division between him and the opposition party. The Honorable Mao, when he was approached to accept the ministerial position, in his own words, he said it took him almost a year to take a decision, to decide. But if he was wise enough, if let's say I'm the one who is approached and this position is willing to wait for me for over a year, I would right out definitely see that as a trap. There is something behind that I can't control. Why wait for me for almost a year to accept a ministerial position? Am I the only one fit in the country? Something like that. So, but because when someone locks themselves in the room alone, ask themselves, how do I lose and how do I benefit? They're like, oh no, I've got to accept this. I'll have a lead car. I'll have security all over me. I'll have allowances. I'll have this and that, things like that. So all of this, when people lock themselves alone, they easily throw away the interests of the many and consider the interests of an individual. Come to the FDC, same thing happened. It started with money for campaigns. Who received the money? Where was it coming from? And all that, it led them where they are. When you go to JEMA, the same thing is happening. The chairman of the party is now at loggerheads with the president of the party. So the sole reason is individual interests over group interests. When they put this into the weighing scale, the individual interests weigh higher than the group interests, and people have subordinated this. It has made them lose their integrity. They don't mind, actually they don't care. So this has been the cause of the division. So the question becomes, do they have an option? Something you said aren't they, puzzled? The opposition as a party, the followers, they are really puzzled as to why these divisions are happening. You saw what happened when I think it's the PPF, I've forgotten, I stand to be corrected. The new FDC, the Katonga faction, when they were moving around to solicit for support and ideas on whether they should register a new political party, what happened was there's some electorate who were divided on, they don't know what route to take because they believe in the principles of the party, but they are not believing in some of the characters that are being, that are purportedly representing their interests that actually seem or sound to be individual, but making them to look general. There are those who believe in Amria to Ball, and there are those who believe in the same Jews, the Besiges. And there are those who actually want to stand in for the party. So the people themselves are perplexed with the division, but the perpetrators of the division are not actually bothered. They are not disturbed. Now, how ready are they for 2026? Definitely, they are not ready enough because if they are to win, they are supposed to be more united and more a bit together. This actually, the division has not spared the ruling party, the NRM. Right now, you saw what happened in Zimbabwe of recent. The Honorable Sech Kubo is the incumbent, but on a gathering in his own constituency and area and the district, he wasn't given platform to say anything, even when the gathering had attracted the head of state to be around. And I think in protocol and leadership and all that governs diplomacy and diplomatic relations, they're supposed to be given an opportunity as the incumbent, whether they agree or disagree with each other, but in protocol, they deserve a right to speak, okay? So when he came out to fight for his right, it was NRM against NRM. Mark you, from what I have heard, the raid between, the raid or the fight between the UPDF and the police purportedly roots down to the division in the party. So when you look at this, all of them are not ready for what is coming ahead of us in the courts of democracy as a country that we should have when we are going in for an electoral process. So to sum up, if the opposition had an option, I know they would have taken it, but they don't have an option because the enemy is also very serious. He's looking for these loopholes and using every opportunity very, very well. The NRM has fished, the NRM stroke PLU has fished several big fish from the pond of the National Unity Platform, as the NUP did from the DP camp, and as Independence has swept the FDC. I was hearing from one of the political philosophers, the Honorable Odonga Oto, who has been in, he said if he's given chance to choose any political party to stand, to use as a political vehicle in the coming election, he wouldn't choose any because of the turmoil that is going on. So they have lost trust to those who have their intellect and they're still governing their intellect. Some parties have there's an override over people's intellect and they are, simply following slogans and all that. Now, the preparedness comes back to us as the political players, the parties themselves, but also the citizenry. Us as the citizens, how ready are we to deal with these subjects of ours who are not prepared? When we look at them, are they the people who wish they should take our country forward? Are they the people who have the values that we stand for as a country? Are they the people that will maintain our relationships with our neighbors around? Are they the people that would really maintain the oneness, the solidarity, or that would push for a united Uganda? You realize that if there are people who can lose their integrity over small things, then they are not the right persons to take us forward. So the citizenship has to examine themselves on what are the tools they are going to use to examine the political people who are running for political positions. What tools are they going to use to examine them to choose the best? Otherwise, we are doomed. We are headed for the worst because we don't have the best option when you examine all options. Thank you.
Right, right. Thank you, Doctor. Francis Kamuhanda, the Electoral Commission is concerned that political parties are not as active as they should be with less than 8 months to the 2026 general elections. They're actually saying that they're under growing scrutiny for their slow preparations. The NRM and the DP have mapped out election strategies. FDC, NUP, Alliance for Transformation, and GEMA remain largely inactive. We are seeing political analysts and governance experts saying that they should by now be reopening regional offices, engaging voters, promoting key policy proposals, fronting their manifestos, but instead they remain silent. And they are going on to say that instead of them focusing too much on reacting to government policies, they should be engaging the electorate. The question here is, when we see all the laxity with these political parties, this has become a seasonal approach politics, because they say the last minute is when they are preparing. Citizens are a voting tool. This is what they have become. We are also seeing that chances are high with the laxity in the political parties, we're likely going to see low voter turnout. And at the end of the day, we are going to go back to the blame game. Honestly speaking, Francis, what do you make of this?
Thank you, Lynn, and panelists for again the insights that you are bringing to this conversation. Yes, I think the electoral commission is I don't know where they stay, and they are far from reality, because number one, it has failed in its responsibility. Like, I will begin with all this that is happening, including the army going to storm the offices of FDC, the shrinking of the civic space. We have been talking about it for I think since the NRM came to power. But it's when now they are bringing it back that we are doing nothing. They should know that we have been having a public outcry. Like the recent concluded election of Kawempe, in Kawempe constituency, where we are replacing late Honorable Segiri Muhammad. We are calling on the electoral commission to take charge, but they themselves, they could not even control that. And earlier on, whenever for example, I talk about the NUP. NUP was also moving to Western Uganda and other areas. You see how they were being silenced, that, oh, you caused an accident, so you should no longer move. So how do they expect us to go and mobilize, to go and do civic engagement with the people when the apparatuses of government, like the police, the UPDF, are netted against us and killing our people, abducting them? For us as ANT, we have been traversing the country doing grassroots mobilization. But there is where we have met with resistance, either where we are saying, and we are using an approach of having town hall meetings. But police would come, like, you are not permitted to do this, we have not given you authorization, and so on. I don't know what kind of preparation the Electoral Commission is talking about. The Electoral Commission itself doesn't have the authority that the Constitution mandates it to do, to say, okay, go and carry out these activities, and even when we find some resistance from security operatives, we report to them. They don't even have the power to come and say, hey, look here, police, look here, UPDF. That is not your area of expertise or jurisdiction. These people have clearance from us. They have to go and do their political mobilization. So I think that's why we have always said this, the Electoral Commission is just an agent of the president, Museveni, because they see they have a fear that if we don't participate in the election, then they will not justify their regime, their clinging on power. Like, how does a single party compete amongst itself? And then you say you have won, even when maybe you are projecting a low voter turnout. That if out of so many millions, how do you again get a low percentage turnout and then you claim that you are the winner? But I think for me, the question that we have to answer is, even when the Electoral Commission gives a roadmap, whether they are in control to supervise we political parties or key players in the politics of Uganda freely go and mobilize. But they don't have that capacity. They don't have, they have lost that mandate. So I think those are some of the electoral reforms that we are talking about. But only to see that since 2016 up to now, those reforms have not taken effect. And then you begin like blaming the opposition, or they are not participating, and so on and so forth. Yes, because the ground is not leveled, and it is not news to Ugandans. Everybody can see it right away from the word go. Like, if people are having their own meetings at their own headquarters, why do you go and storm a meeting and arrest people? Why do you go and storm into different offices, and so on and so forth? Dr. Kisambira talked about the NRM beginning to fish some prominent people from the opposition. Yes. Why? Because they first the terror they first met creates a condition that people become fearful, and therefore those who are chicken-hearted, they have no option than joining the NRM. Some of them even who have their own businesses, we have seen government touching them in a way that you feel incapacitated, and the only way you can do is to bend loyal to and dance to the whims of the current government. So I think the Electoral Commission, if it had agreed, and this conversation we have always asked for it, that we can have a conversation and then it tells us and ascertains its role and mandate and how we can be safe in as far as our political mobilization is concerned, but it didn't, and now it is coming. Generally, the Electoral Commission should not be even saying anything, because now that is already a preparation that they want to reach for the incumbent, because that's what they always do, to say that, you see, even during the campaigns they did not participate, where could they have gotten the votes? So it is important for me to say that the ground is not leveled. That is the number one. But again, at the same time, we are mobilizing in our own way amidst the hardships that we are facing. But it is important they should first guarantee that the military and the police again will not get involved. But otherwise, if the status quo remains like this, then we feel we have always navigated the hard terrain, but we are mobilizing in our own way, and it's not our responsibility to tell them how we are doing that, because we know the terrain we are operating in is not all that good. But we are mobilizing, and we are selling our alternative policies and on alternative government, how it would look like to the people who listen to us, although it may not be as open as how a democratic dispensation country would operate, because for us, we know we are under a dictatorship, no, a terrorist kind of government that terrorizes its own people. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Francis. Dr. Kisambira, I come to you, and still on the same issue as we wind up on it. Political analysts, is actually raising concerns that with the not so active political parties ahead of 2026 could fuel a decline in voter turnout. But we've also seen that there's been a declining voter turnout in previous elections. They're arguing that parties should be working on mobilization strategies, encouraging citizens to check their voter details, fronting their manifestos, and also, fronting, alternative policies to their voters. And they're saying that failing to field candidates across various electoral positions weakens Uganda's multi-party democracy. Just so you know, we have close to 20 registered political parties. Where are they? What are they doing? And the question remains, as we wind up on this conversation of political party preparedness, will they step up or they will remain unprepared?
Yes, thank you once again, the moderator and the panelists. Let me begin by saying, back in the days, in our village primary schools, when we used to share desks, as like you sit on one desk, 5 people in a row classroom without any sort of pavement, and everything is in the open. Sometimes even you mix classes, P4 and P5, almost the same class, or you only face opposite sides. If someone polluted the air and they were suspicious of being pointed at, they would be the ones to first ask, oh, someone must have, polluted the air around us. So who is that? Who is that? I mean, they're the first ones to start asking around, yet they are the real culprits. You see, when you say the Electoral Commission is concerned about the inactivity of some parties, these two scenarios are synonymous. It has polluted the air, and it's starting to ask around, oh, who might have polluted the air around us, and in fear of being pointed at first. When you see not all of us, okay, just take another example from the football, most competitive competitions, not all teams lead the table. You'll have those, in the Premier League, the one that I used to support before, there used to be the big 4, who sometimes would represent the cream of the tournament for the rest of the teams. You understand? All the other teams were just there to make sure the tournament actually fulfills its numbers and to moderate what is happening in these big 4 teams. When you examine the big 4 of our political environment, I think they have done some work. It's not that they are not active. To start with, the incumbent, he has done his part. The party has set the ball rolling for him in all ways, and his ministers and his all other people who support the leading government have set the ball rolling for the president to actually do some work when it comes to mobilization, and they have tried their best. They have used all the powers, the tools that they have access to, including those of coercive tools, including the army and the security forces, to coerce people to accept that we only have one government, one political party to take lead, and that's the NRM. That's why you see the police stopping other people but allowing those in yellow to do their activities. That's why you see ministers not sitting in offices but moving region by region for any small and big functions they are there to attend. That's why you see the president attending even the smallest function that you would know. He has serious ground teams that are doing serious mobilizations. Yes, even when he's using state resources, that is what he has at his disposal to use. So they have done some good work. And of recent, we've seen the NRM launch their National Voters Register, and they are planning to take on village barazas to mobilize village by village. So you don't downplay such efforts. The National Unity Platform has also done its best in trying to mobilize its electorate, and I think they have done very, very well. And they have organized events, they have organized activities. It's on a sad note that many of them have been blocked by state agencies, but this has also served to them as publicity in one way or the other, because all the media stations capture this. the social media and digital platforms have captured all these events and they have given them mileage. Even the most recent blocked gathering in solidarity for Edim Twe was aired almost on every media station yesterday. So it has created for them something to do with mobilization. One thing that would put in question is, okay, maybe the Democratic Party, but the Democratic Party has been in almost every higher institution using its UID president, Honorable Isma Chiria. He has been moving university by university trying to mobilize. And maybe the FDC, the most recent activity for the FDC I saw was in Soroti, where the president, President Patrick Kamria Toboy, was arrested and his team trying to do some mobilization work. So there is some work that is definitely going on. Now the problem comes in when the referee starts complaining that, oh, the match is not interesting. What could be happening? Yet he's the referee. The Electoral Commission has not come out to clear the space for all the players to actually play. So if a small team in a league is seeing a big team being persecuted in trying to do its obligations that, fall within the docket of its roles to play in the league, it doesn't pick up the energy to invest more in its players to compete with the rest. Otherwise, it will be like, oh, Man U has gone through this, or Arsenal has gone through this. Do you think me as maybe Nottingham Forest will make it? Nothing. So they won't buy new players because they see the tournament not making any sense because the top four guys are being mistreated. The same way, the other parties, the other opposition parties, because, we have only one on this side, so the rest fall on the other side, have seen what has happened to the FDC when the FDC was the LOB for quite some time, have seen what has happened to the DP when the DP was the LOB, and I've seen what is happening to the National Unity Platform right now when they are the LOBs. So they don't have the energy like JEMA, PPP, whatever, those other players. They don't have the energy to actually take on to take on the mantle to invest in the electorate to do mobilization. That is one. Then two, when you put them on a scale of resources, how much resources do each of these political parties have to actually do these activities? Even the NRM that has access to these resources does not have an NRM office at every village. They only take advantage that almost every LC1 right now, except those around Kampala and some few municipalities and townships that have belonged to the National Unity Platform, many of them have been cadres of the NRM. You understand? So they they ride on that to appear as if they have offices at every level. But yes, they have the resources, but they have not utilized them to that level. Now, there are those who actually do not have the resources. I understand some of the NUP and the FDC offices are not being paid for. They were donated by royal cadres. Be like, oh, I've given you space to operate from here. You understand? So resources has been one of the biggest constraints to political parties to run their activities. Lastly, is about the referee themselves. What role has the referee played in trying to protect the teams to exercise their mandates? The referee has played no role. Over and over again, just this week, the National Unity Platform has been raided twice. They had organized a gathering for, I think it was the youth protest vote, and then the gathering for Edim Twe. In 1 week, the office has been raided twice, and the gathering has not been allowed. Now the referee comes out to say, oh, we are not seeing activity in these political parties. What is happening? So it means that the referee has not played his own role, so he has no mandate to start criticizing whatever is happening. Otherwise, he might also just become a spectator and watch the space to see what is going on. And let the winds decide the direction of the dust. But he has no role and obligation to comment on whatever direction the dust is taking. Now, Madam Lynn, the activity of political parties is also the electorate have a big role to play. You understand? Now, we've seen that the electorate have become victims of party activities, even when they are not direct players in what is happening. Let me start with the NRM. Interestingly, it has coerced some people for, ceremonially gathered some supporters. You understand? They are being ferried to where they want them to be at that particular time, being promised maybe refunds and all that, and have been dumped there. Okay? So tomorrow they expect to come back to the same people to mobilize them to enter. To join them in their efforts. We have seen the the People Power Group, the NUP group. Whenever they organize a meeting, someone has to face the wrath of the security forces. So the electorate for the National Unity Platform is refraining from all mobilization activities in fear of retribution from what would happen to them when the security forces raid, just like yesterday. Border guys had to eat tear gas, people who are running their own businesses and all that because they have a political party next to them that is being attacked by, And then lastly, you have those from, you have these two from the FDC, and the one is in an official marriage and the other is, the DP is in official marriage. The FDC, Najana Kombi faction, is in unofficial marriage with the incumbent. So you have another group of the electorate that is confused. They don't know whether it is the NRM to organize the DP activities and the FDC. They don't know that it's the FDC to organize its own activities and the DP to organize its own activities. Trust me today, if the Democratic Party had a gathering that is aimed at mobilizing, okay, not to say much. You saw what happened in Kawempe North by election. Whatever was happening could show you the direction of the winds and who are the big players that are taking the biggest share in this. So this also has a big role to play in determining the activity of political parties, the energy that is on ground and the motivation in this energy. What is the motivation of this energy? So you realize that some energies are deterrent and others are fueling. Those that have the resources, like the incumbent, have tried to fuel their mobilization activities and they have been a success. Those that do not have resources and have negative externalities like attacks from security forces and all that, they have refrained from the mobilization activities because they have not yielded. So these are some of the factors that the referee should look at and start to earn some mandate to comment about the activity of political parties. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kisambira. I see Albert is back. Albert, we are now going on to another conversation, and that is what's happening in the DR Congo. And I'm going to start with you. Reports of Friday suggest, that was yesterday, that the DRC and Rwanda, which is backing the rebel group M23, the main armed rival to the DRC in a war that has ravaged the DRC's east for years, have submitted drafts for a preliminary peace accord to end the war. Now, this came 2 days after a conversation or an agreement, if I could say, in Qatar that saw the two factions or the two countries come to an agreement in Doha. They said, we signed the peace agreement, and then there's a minerals deal with the DRC and all those things. But the question here is, will this hold? Because we have seen that the Eastern DRC has been riddled with insecurity. It has been the worst, insecurities for years. So the question here is, will this peace accord and whatever it is they're calling it at the moment, will it hold? Because we're seeing now the US is also involved.
Thank you, Lynn, and panelists. I apologize for dropping off abruptly. I had something that I couldn't miss. So, will it hold? You said the deal is being made in Qatar and the Americans involved. Again, we are back to where I left off on the interests of Africa somehow being placed, or at least the hope being placed in the foreigners to protect those interests. Will it hold? No, not until we actually sit as Africans or descendants of Africans. If we sit together across the table and look at something that actually works for us. But if a deal is being struck in Qatar, and now here, United Arab Emirates is also involved in the region, the US wants minerals out of Congo, they can sign a deal for that. those peace deals will not hold because they're not ones that we have organically come up with as Africans. They are ones that are being influenced by foreign interests. So I have no hope. I mean, if it does, I mean, God knows the people of Congo have suffered enough. The people of the region have suffered enough. It will be a good thing to see peace and development in that place. But the deals that are being signed and influenced by foreigners are not going to be one that bring that change in the region. Mm-hmm. So that's the brief answer to the question. And if I remember just briefly, maybe I could take you back because I had an answer to your earlier question on the politics of Uganda and the tweeting general. I think that's where I dropped off. I have of recent resisted from discussing personalities because in whether we like it or not, the gentleman is a product of the politics of Uganda. And like some of us, like I could say I've come here, I've lived in the US for 30 years. That gentleman has not lived or grown up anywhere else other than Uganda. So whatever he's exhibiting is really part of our culture, whatever it has become. It's really showing where we are as a country and as a people. Holding somebody in your basement and torturing them, that says so much about Uganda than about him as an individual. Okay, that he's allowed to do that. So what I would suggest and what I have been advocating for of recent is a tough conversation that could lead the next administration in Uganda to be that of power and wealth sharing. It's controversial because people have put in their time. You see Noop standing up structures and Kamuhanda is here talking about Ant and all that. But I think all that in the context of where we are is a waste of time. At some point, we're going to have the difficult conversation of power and wealth sharing in Uganda. The sooner we start it, the better. Mm-hmm. And why we haven't reached there is because right now, and rightly so, the power is concentrated in the hands of a few, predominantly from one region, and even if you drill in there, even from one tribe, and even if you drill in there, even from one subsect of that tribe, that's where the power is. And at the moment, the people who are making the most noise are predominantly in the central Uganda. If you drill in there, they're mostly Baganda. And if you drill even in there, you'll find that it's a subset of that tribe. So at some point, we'll have to reconcile those two things. I'm not, trust me, people have said it, but I'm not a tribalist. I could care it. I'm Toro. So I'm in the US. I really don't have any tribal sentiments, but I'm just being realistic. The current administration has predominantly benefited people from one area at the expense of mostly people from another area. It's not like somehow the Batoro, the Bachigan, and the others are not suffering. They are. Well, Uganda is suffering. But predominantly, the most people who have lost a lot in the administration that has been in power for almost 40 years now are in the central region. Baganda, we can say it. And the ones who have gained a lot of power and wealth are also from southwest Uganda. We can say it. And those two things cannot hold for so long. At some point, we will clash. So we can talk about politics. And by the way, I'm saying this, but other people are acting on it. You saw the tweeting general, as you said, tweeted and said, the gentleman is in the basement learning Runyankole. He wasn't learning Rutoro. He wasn't learning Alu. He's learning Runyankole. Because that's the language of the power. That's the language of wealth. He's saying it, whether he's joking or not, is irrelevant. But it evokes a sentiment, a hatred sentiment, a tribalistic sentiment But when we talk about it, people say, oh, don't say that because people say you are tribalistic. So in my humble opinion, I will move way past Muhoozi and his comments and talk about really what is at stake in Uganda. And I would suggest that people we have a doctor here, we have others, politicians, people who are even smarter than me. We should start having a conversation over power and wealth sharing in Uganda, and we should address this question of the people who feel so much disenfranchised.
Right.
If we don't do that, then everything else that we're doing and all the energy we're concentrating on tweets is wasted. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Albert, for your comments on the tweeting general and what his sentiments or whatever he's trying to achieve has the effects of it have on the general well-being of Ugandans. But we are looking at the issue of the Congo-Rwanda peace deal. We see that the U.S. has joined in the mediation process because, of course, and it has sat down and put forward its concerns, which must be addressed, key security concerns. Apparently, they want Rwanda. Rwanda must withdraw its troops and cease support for the M23 rebels, while the while the DRC must address Rwandan concerns with militias like the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda. We are seeing a multinational oversight committee that includes the US, Qatar, France, and Togo. Togo representing the AU as they're monitoring the process of the peace deal. The question here is, will this peace deal eventually hold? Or maybe because the US now has come in, certainly we know it has its interests, but maybe it has a bigger voice. Do you think it will hold?
Oh, thank you, Lynn and fellow panelists. I always begin with a straightforward answer. The peace deal will not hold. Why? Because, as I have always said, that once the foreign influence backs off from this question, then it is solved locally, then we can reach an agreement. Because this is a domestic question, but every time the president of Congo and his allies think that there should be a foreign power that should come in, they never reach a lasting solution. I would again echo what Baksara has just said, that some of these conversations, they need we, the people who are facing the challenge, to come and talk truth to each other and resolve our differences. But every time we bring a third party who is interested not only to help us resolve our difference, but to see how they also, in one way or another, exploit us to gain from the confusion and conflict that we have, then that in itself sets a baseline that it will not be resolved. It will be just something that is temporary, and immediately for them, after getting what they want, whether minerals or whatever, then we go back to where we started from. But I do believe that the Congo question would be easy if it is solved locally. For example, the M23, they just say, look here, treat us as citizens. Don't begin accusing us we are from Rwanda and so on. Once we understand the colonial attachment to why the conflict exists, then the better we can solve the problem. Knowing that, but every time we run again to the colonialists to solve our domestic problem, which they created, by the way, during the Berlin conference, the scramble for the partition of Africa, then we are not solving anything. We are not solving anything. It is like a goat asking a hyena or a lion or a leopard, can you take care of my kids and protect them from other hyenas or from other lions? So that's what is happening. So I see that it would be better, only that we also have a challenge. I'm disappointed with the AU, the African Union, because it is a club of either African dictators helping each other than serving the interests of all of us as Africans. But I still think that if we come come to the table, like as how the M23 had agreed that they can talk to Kisekedi, then they would first push out all the foreign forces, and then they say, okay, like now as if the Congo joined the East African community, they coming together and say, okay, let's try to resolve it as the East African community, because the demands for the M23 are not so much that a sane government cannot meet. But because of the dictatorial tendencies, I think that's where the problem lies. Whether you bring foreign powers and so on, it will be like having a problem and then you administer Panado. It will cure the pain, but it doesn't mean that it has cured the disease. You will not feel the pain, but the disease will remain. So I still believe that a local solution will help the situation than bringing all these foreign powers with their selfish interests. And after a given point, then we go back to the same problem. So that's my take about it, and I don't see a lasting solution. There may be a temporary solution after amassing whatever mineral they need, because after all, these people have been there taking minerals and minerals and minerals. Why is it that the problem, they did not think of the problem being solved? So I think it is not going to help. We have to rethink locally. But if that is the first initial approach that Tshisekedi and his allies are thinking that can bring peace, I have no problem. We should try it, but it is temporary and it is not going to yield lasting peace. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Francis. Dr. Kisambira, I want to conclude with you on this conversation as we come to an end. We are seeing that this new development, new in a sense of it's just recent, but we have been here before. We have seen conversations around ending violence in the Eastern Congo, but the new one seems to, point to diplomatic rapprochement efforts to end violence in Eastern DRC. And we're seeing that now we have the US, we have Qatar, we have, of course, France and Togo coming together on the table saying, we are behind you. We would love to see peace come back to the Eastern Congo. It has been a turbulent, mineral-rich East for a very long time. And the question here is, will this peace deal, this particular one, will it hold any water? Will we see an end to the turbulence in Eastern Congo?
Well, thank you so much. To begin with, we need to dissect the cause. What's the root cause of this violence? And what were the parties, or who were the parties in signing the peace deal, and who are the parties that are, involved in the conflict? When you go back to what politicians and other political analysts have usually called the oil and mineral curse, the real root cause of this conflict are the minerals which have not shifted from the Eastern DRC and Kiev and other places. Sorry, it's called, I've forgotten the name of the place, I've mixed up. But the Eastern DRC and Goma, actually even some part of the Northern DRC, these minerals are not going to shift tomorrow, yet they are the primary cause of the conflict. Now that takes us back to the possible options, or options available to get to the solution of this conflict. I do believe in diplomatic means of solving conflicts between countries, and this has worked. We have seen it work in so many places, and we have seen it fail as well. So this particular peace deal is not cast on stone that it would really convince anyone who has learned from history that it will stand for long. It depends on the pillars and how best the culprits or the perpetrators have been engaged. I do believe that in this peace deal, as far as I know, it was only the the Rwandan and the DR Congo foreign ministers involved. We didn't see the M23 being brought into this picture. So there was, I think, the main pillars of this talk was that Rwanda should withdraw its forces from the Eastern DRC, and both sides should stop supporting non-sovereign militias with arms. Okay, so it means that there was kind of an indirect attack to the M23. So in other words, the US is trying to say, we want Rwanda and DR Congo to be against the M23. I don't know if I get that. So diplomatically, all parties involved in all diplomatic conversations and discussions front their interests, and they are steadfast in trying to achieve them. One, I want to dissect one by one. When you look at the US, what would be the interest of the US in trying to bring Rwanda and Congo together, to stop them from supporting the M23? The reason is one. One of the main reasons of the M23 fighting is because the minerals in the area have not benefited people in the area. So they want to take charge of the minerals that are coming from their place, and they decide their fate, which is not in favor of any other external forces that are benefiting from the exploitation. So one wise external man will be like, yes, I want you two locals to unite. We fight against this other person because he's against both of us. So I do think, in my opinion, that that's one of the interests of the US. Okay, and then secondly, when you look at DR Congo, yes, he has an interest in the peace deal, and from his side, the look of things is that yes, this peace deal can hold because it favors the DR Congo in trying to help them stop the advancement of the M23 to the capital, to the main capital. You understand? Or to take control of other cities. So I mean, beyond the eastern side. So when they have a union between Rwanda and Congo in support of the US, it is easy for the DRC government to fight against its enemy. So the M23 becomes a common enemy. So the peace deal in that line has I mean, that's where the interest of the DRC government lies, in my opinion. Now, the interest of Rwanda, where does it lie? Trust me, Rwanda has no interest in all of this, and that is the beginning of the failure of the peace deal. I mean, does Rwanda benefit if DRC is at peace? No, it doesn't, because it harbors, if there is peace in DRC, like if the government of the DRC is concentrated on itself and whatever is happening around it, then Rwanda is not safe, given its size and given the, I think there are tribal conflicts between some groups that claim to be Rwandan and are denied rights on the other side and are being harbored in the DRC. So it is easy for the government to support such groups that would in turn bring back the pressure to Rwanda. So if the conflict in DRC is continuing, Rwanda is benefiting because the attention of the government is drawn towards the internal conflict than dealing with external forces. I don't know if you understand that. So Rwanda protects its sovereign through supporting that conflict on the other side. So that's the only way it also makes its forces stay around the border. That's how it can poke its nose in what is happening the other side under the umbrella of trying to protect its own territory from attackers from the other side. That's how it can be monitoring the airspace around the border areas all the time. Other than saying that we should restore peace, and that causes laxity and it brings some sort of perceived insecurity on the Rwandan side. So Rwanda does not benefit in this peace deal at all. Lastly, but not least, there has been claims that Rwanda does not have uranium mines, but it is one of the leading exporters of uranium. Where does it get it from? I think it gets it from the DRC. So how does it get it? Is it through legitimate means or through certain channels that cannot easily be scrutinized to the benefit of the DRC government? So when you bring back peace, how secure is this profitable business going to proceed in order to bring Rwanda to the positive balance of its, to the positive side of its balance of trade and balance of payment. I mean, it's going to affect their exports, and one of the exports that they have that is earning them lots of dollars is being picked from the DRC. So the peace deal can really succeed if we believe in diplomatic means, because we have seen this work elsewhere. And I want to commend President Trump for that. He has tried to make sure the globe is at peace whenever he has chance to, he has been given chance by the Americans to rule. He has tried to make sure wherever there is a conflict, he comes in and tries to, win an interest in favor of the US, but also bring back peace, just like he's trying to do between Ukraine and Russia. However, when it comes back to our region here, it is absurd that the rest of us think unrest is only in DRC. I want to categorically speak that the whole region is at unrest. We've just finished examining what is in Uganda. When you go to the neighborhood in Kenya, one of the opposition MPs was gunned down. When you go to what is happening in the northern part of, South Sudan and northern Sudan, things are not okay that side. The Somalia side is just a bit settled, but, internal turmoils are going on. There's both cold and real wars in the region. In Tanzania, you're hearing what is happening there politically. So you realize that, yes, there is general unrest around the region. And when the efforts are only put on DRC, it does not guarantee security at all in the region. So we need to come back, just like my colleague has said, the panelist, Mr. Kamuhanda. The way he has put it, we need local solutions to solve local problems. Otherwise, the more we base on external forces, we do not stay away from pushing forward their external interests, which come with a cost on our side. So we need to look at local solutions for local problems, and I believe we still have local diplomatic channels that we can use to solve our local problems, just like what is happening in South Sudan. I don't know how diplomatic it was, how President Kiir invited President Museveni to intervene in their matter, but at least it was a local solution that is trying to solve a local problem. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Doctor. And indeed, I want to borrow Francis Kamuhanda's statement that we are smartly dressed going nowhere. And it's indeed the entire region. We're seeing that Somalia is requiring about 8,000 more soldiers, to handle the situations there. But I will quickly pick a minute from each one of you as we wind up on the show. Albert, I want to begin with you conclusively in 1 minute.
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you, fellow panelists. And I've always appreciated this time, this conversation, short as it is, and we do touch a whole bunch of subjects, and maybe we don't talk about them exhaustively. But these conversations do help. And believe it or not, if our people were talking, they wouldn't be shooting each other. They wouldn't be holding people in the basements if they were talking. So this helps, and every time I get a chance to participate, I do. And again, I apologize today, I was in and out. But I thank you. I thank you, the panelists, for their submissions. And hopefully we keep these conversations going. And at some point, maybe someone picks a leaf and keeps them going.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Albert. Francis.
Well, thank you, Lynn, and fellow panelists. It is always exciting to have this conversation to discuss about what is affecting our country and also claiming our position in the global village. I would say that number one, it is important that if we are under a democratic dispensation in Uganda, then we should see every citizen participate without any deterrences, like as how it is being done by Museveni and his regime. Then I also say that once as we identify ourselves as Ugandans, and then we also look at how do we fare in the region, it is important we also look at the stability of our region. That's how we can economically develop as a people, but also as a region, and also be recognized elsewhere. But back to the piece that we want or we want to export to other countries, it is important we first grow it back home by ensuring that our institutions function and reflect what we are projecting or claiming outside there. And that speaks to our electoral commission. I hope that they can regain their power to be able that they can control and guide the electoral process in Uganda in a more peaceful way. Thank you, fellow panelists and all our viewers, and we look forward to another fruitful conversation.
Thank you so much, Francis. And finally, Dr. Kisambira, in 1 minute.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I want to use my 1 minute to comment on the following. That one, we need to find local solutions to local problems for our dear viewers, for emphasis. Two, we as a country, we need to be ready for tribalistic directions and choose our fate and play our roles. And lastly, we have local diplomatic avenues that we can explore to solve regional challenges. I want to thank Civic Space TV for hosting us and giving us an opportunity for sharing all this, and the sponsorship from Center for Constitutional Governance. We appreciate your invitations, that despite the narrowing civic space, you've tried to at least create for us some digital space that we can deliberate on some of these issues. For change-seeking Ugandans, I want to believe that you have a lot to do, and you still have, even not doing anything is actually doing something. That I see the saucepan boiling from inside, and hope there is colleagues, change will come. Thank you so much, dear.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Kisambira. Thank you, Albert, Baksara. Thank you, Francis Kamuhanda, and Miriam, who dropped off earlier. But thank you so much for keeping it and for making time every other time we call on you. Our dear viewers, we assure you that more of these conversations are coming as we also prepare for the 2026 general elections. And I urge you to also look out for yourself and for the parties that you support, and put in some effort. You have a role to play as a citizen, but also as a voter. So we urge you to do your mandate as a citizen. Otherwise, wish you the very best. We'll catch you again next time.